So Paula, you're from?
From Brazil. I'm in São Paulo, Brazil. So it's 8 in the morning here.
Right. And Fred, where are you?
In France, west coast of France right now. And you?
I'm in Amsterdam. Yeah. Amsterdam, and it's early afternoon for me. Right.
So wonderful. Today we're trying out this webinar feature. So for those of you who have been with us on our previous webinars, you today will only see the three of us, and but you can send questions and things through chat. And we also have people in the backup team, and Fred's going to talk about them so that you know that there's more than just the three of us on the screen. But we found that we wanted to test this new format with the group today. So thank you for being our test crew for this.
Let's start.
Yep.
Fine for you, ladies?
Absolutely. Yeah. Look forward to it.
Yeah. Warm welcome to everyone. Really pleased to spend that webinar with you. I'm extremely excited, actually. The three of us are extremely excited to spend that time with you, this 45-minute webinar. It's the third one. And the topic, as you know, is reshaping the way we work. So we have a quick introduction. We already shared where we're from. Paula from Brazil and managing partner of our Brazilian office in Sao Paulo. Frauke in charge of the Dutch office in Amsterdam, and myself responsible for the French office in Paris. My role, and just to be clear about roles, Paula and Frauke are going to be our guest speakers, and I'm going to facilitate that session. Also, because it's teamwork, it's not only the three of us, but it's much more. It's also a big thank to Catherine and Luis supporting us during that session. Just for you to know, guys, that she's going to be very, they are going to be very active during that session. They were very extremely active before. So thank you for your hard work, guys. Let's talk about the topic. And as many of you know, we are a global organization. We've been working in this leadership consulting firm for the last 20 years, meeting so many clients, so many leaders. And the intention of that discussion today with you is just to share what we've been hearing in a way, what in a way we're seeing around the world. There are so many things right now. In the last weeks, it's amazing the amount of information, insights that people are sharing. It's incredible, actually. And the intention is really to share what we notice, what we've been noticing, getting also your perspective. So it's not only us sharing with you, but it's also a real discussion with you. So please, you are going to have a chat box. You are going to have a Q&A box. Please use it. The chat box for more your reflection during the discussion, and the Q&A box, it's really about your questions. We are not going to answer to every question. We would love to, but just to be very clear and manage expectations, we are going to try to answer a few of them. At the same time, what we would like to do with you is to go through different questions. Just to structure the discussion with you, I'm happy to share one document with you, and it's going to be actually the frame. Can you see it? Yeah, good. So the three questions we have for you and for us actually is these questions. Are you managing the response or creating transformation? How are you thinking beyond COVID? We are in this COVID situation, no question about that, but how are you thinking beyond? And last but not least, it's a big one, how will be remembered for how you acted during COVID-19? So you can take a note of these questions. We are going to be back at the end of the session, back to you with this question, and just to get your reflections. You are going to get a different insight from us. You are going to get some reflection from your side. So happy to get this and to share this at the end of the session. Also, something we wanted to do with you is to, just for you to know that we are going to record that session. I think it's recorded. Luis, if you do confirm, I guess so, yeah. And finally, I think I talked enough. So the stage is yours, Frauke, please.
Thank you, Fred. Nice introduction. Well, let's start with how we kind of prepared for this webcast and what we realized. So we already spoke about from Brazil, from France, from the Netherlands, people from Athens, from the UK, a lot of people are from different parts in the world, and we all face COVID-19. So you may want to assume that we're all in the same phase, but actually we realize we're not. It's very different where people are in whether they're in 4 weeks lockdown, whether they're in 5 weeks lockdown, where you already knew about China, you already started 8 weeks ago. We realize that businesses are very different where they are in some are flourishing even. Some face some bankruptcy. We also learned how we deal with it differently, right? There are generally a lot of differences country-wise. But what we actually saw, the three of us, that generally we could distinguish when we talk to our clients and where they're at, that roughly 3 different phases. So the first one that we all know is the survival. For example, the INGs, the corporates, but also the small, medium enterprises, how to make sure that everyone can enter the network of the company, that you work from home, that you save your cash flow. Oh gosh, what's happening? How do you communicate with your people, the well-being? And then the other phase that we now realize that people go into stabilization. And that is also the phase of that people realize, wow, what has happened? And they get more used to the unusual way of working, also the way of feeling tired. And then what we also realize now with a few other clients is that they already start thinking beyond COVID-19. But before I would give an example, maybe first explain those 3, and then we take it from there. Paula?
Sure. First, we'd like to know where you're at, right? So, Catherine, can you launch the poll? We're going to take a quick poll to know which phase you and your company are at. Are you in the survival phase? So managing cash flow, seeing how we get out of this, how we get through COVID. Are you in the stabilization phase? So you figured out what to do. Things are getting back to normal. Or are you already thinking beyond COVID? So as you are answering, we start to see answers. We have 30% of the people who have already voted. So I'm just waiting for it to go all the way or most of the way so that we can share the results, because then it's interesting also to understand what stage you, our clients, our friends, our associates believe you are in and your companies are in. We still have a couple more people to vote, so we're going to leave it for another 10 seconds or so, Catherine, and then we can publish the results. But it's very interesting because I'm seeing the preview before you, and it's almost a third, but with most people in the stabilized phase, but still a lot in survival mode. I think you can publish the results, Catherine, please, and they will update. I have to end the poll. There it is. Okay. So out of our sample right now, we have 45% staying there and stabilized, but we already have some people moving to beyond COVID. So it's very interesting because really this is not necessarily about the country you're in. You have to close the poll on your own, by the way, if you don't want to see it in front of the screen. So it's not just about the country you're in, but also about where you are as a company. I have to share the results. Okay, so I hope everyone's seen that. Keeps popping up, Catherine, for some reason. Sorry about that. But what we've been talking about as well is this period is a bit like a war period, right? And how will people talk about you after this war period is something that we've been talking about. And one of the questions that Fred poses up front is, are you just reacting to the situation, or are you actually changing the situation, changing something about yourself? And something we've also been noticing and talking to a small client, the person said, you know what? I've discovered that this is the new normal. There's no way I don't think anymore about when am I going to get back to normal. This is my life now. And how do I live it now? So this person's in the stabilized phase, which is where most of you are at. So at the end of the webinar, we are going to have a moment to reflect on this. How did you unlock new ways of being, new ways of cooperation, new services and advanced thinking? And when we talk about agility, this environment changes so fast that things are moving very, very fast. And so even the title of this webinar, when we put it together 4 weeks ago, has shifted somewhat to what the needs are now. So it's also a very fast moving environment.
One aspect, technical aspect, just for you to know that if you want to get the result back to the results, it's in the chat box in the meantime. Thank you, Louise.
Thank you, Fred.
Maybe to give an example on what we heard from a client that is already thinking beyond COVID-19, would that be a good moment to share? So there is this insurance company, and we had a chat with the chief risk officer, and he said, well, actually, we are moving beyond COVID-19. So we are thinking, so just imagine that the majority of the people will keep on working from home, even if we are beyond COVID, that it could very well be that we have different diseases. So maybe we need to offer different insurances. Another thing is that there are more companies who have a kind of furlough thing that are helping the organizations to stay alive. And let's take an example of the Netherlands, how they do it here. The company that has to pay those payments to those companies to help them out, they have to pay within 48 hours. So they cannot check their entitlement. They can only check it after. And he was saying, so that's not the way we work in insurance. But would it be interesting to, going forward, work that way? When someone claims something, we pay within 48 hours and then check entitlements afterwards. Just to give an example of one of our clients that's already thinking beyond what maybe different processes, different products even.
Great. Let's move on.
Yeah.
Perfect. And let's start. Just the first question to you, and considering that we've been working on different continents, we have different kinds of clients actually. We work with big corporations, with small organization, local organization, mid-size. So different kind of clients. And question for you, Paula, it's considering the discussion you have with your main contacts is what are you experiencing from our clients? And also what phase are they mainly in? If you could share some thoughts and insights about that. Paula? Seems that she's frozen, no? The same for you, Frauke?
I'm not frozen, no, it seems that Paula is frozen.
Yeah, it's Paula seems to be frozen. If potentially, let's move to a different question. Let's wait for Paula to be back, and let's manage that.
Then we take it there.
Yeah, in a way. So let's move on, and we have another different question. One question is about there are different layers in an organization, for sure. Leadership is not only the top C-level people, but it's also the middle managers. That's what it is about. And one question to you, Frauke, is where do you think today the leadership responsibility lies right now? What do you think about that?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. And we asked our clients as well. And what we realized is actually leadership responsibility lies everywhere. Of course, the obvious one is the executive level. Some clients talked to us, and it's actually, I'm actually very excited. I love this crisis. I get things done and that maybe have not happened before. And one person said, oh, now I can do the reorganization and people work together. So that is one thing. But we also realized that there's actually everyone has a responsibility. For nowadays, it's very important that you are agile, that you have a high adaptability, that you are curious, right? So if you look at teams nowadays, what organizations want is that people are, they can take up new responsibilities very fast, that they can learn new skills very fast. Like everyone had to learn Zoom, Microsoft Teams, whatever, Trello, all kind of things. So it also has to do with, and we thought when we talked about this webinar, right? It's a very nice moment for reflection now. We can look back 4 weeks, 5 weeks, 8 weeks. And when you were really honest with yourself, how did you adapt? Were you welcoming the change? How could you deal with your emotions? Were you able to stay positive? And how usually do you upskill? Do you only do it now, or do you also would like to do it after? But we also realize there's a lot going on around teams, right? So there's also team responsibility, especially for middle management, is that, and they realized how important it is to stay connected to your people and to find ways And we all know about the Friday drinks that we have and the walk-ins. But actually, there's also a responsibility for middle management that you help your team to learn from this period, that you support a team reflection on, so we did it in our own team, right? We talked about, so how have you experienced the last period? How did you feel about it? What is your freshest thinking about the future steps? And I think, yeah, not only think, but that is a crucial role for middle management. There's now this question around how do we stay connected, but there's also a responsibility to let people learn from it. Paula, you're back.
Yeah, she's back. We are talking about connection, so you're back.
So we just talked about those reflections and the question, where lies the responsibility? So I talked about the executive, the middle management and the individual level. So probably nice if you add your thoughts around it.
And before, if you want to, I can share also one or two thoughts if you want before, or do you want to start?
Fine.
Please.
It's fine. Thank you. Sorry about that.
No, it's okay.
Some kind of internet issues, part of the agile environment with everyone working from home and both kids in school and husband working, etc. But I think one of the things that we have talked about a lot now is that everyone's a leader, and this is new for everyone. And who knows more right now in the organization, the CEO or the intern, right? So it's the CEO's potential in place to share some consistency and some security for the organization, but they also have never gone through this before. So what is it that they're supposed to do? And everyone's a leader at home and at work, etc. What kind of cross-pollination can you have between work and home? What can now transfer from one place to the other? And how can we all connect both at home and at work differently now that we are in this new reality?
And to build on it, it's something about that topic, that question is one discussion we had with a few clients in France. It's, you could be surprised by the people who are going to emerge during that crisis.
Yeah. Oh yes,
and it's not always the top C-level people.
No.
And sometimes it's not. But news for that company, but it's not. But it can be some middle management level, and these people can be very inspiring, very impactful, very useful in these times. And there are people, we know that, they love to be in that situation. And they love sometimes crisis, and they are emerging, changing, developing themselves increasingly. So interesting times, I would say, in terms of leadership.
I would like to, it really resonates for me, Fred, because I had this coaching with one of the executives, and she was talking about her CEO being this lovely crisis manager. And we talked about, so are you responding to the crisis, or are you creating a transformation? And it was actually very interesting about talking about responsibility instead of expecting the CEO to be this wonderful person to do it all, actually to take her responsibility and find a group of like-minded people who are already thinking beyond COVID-19. Because you really need headspace to do that. Not everyone has that. And also as a CEO, you probably don't need to do it all on your own, but find the people, free up some people who can have headspace to already think beyond COVID-19. Yeah.
And actually, it's really interesting. I had just before a coaching session with one partner of one of our great clients, professional services, and what he discussed with me was the fact that they try to address the crisis, but actually when they are contacting their clients know what to do if they need their support or not. And he told us what we need to do now. It's not to think about the crisis and how to respond to that and how to support our clients, but it's really about managing the after COVID. What is going to emerge? And now they are coming back to their clients and they're discussing with the board teams about that. That's the topic. That's the board members are looking for. And it's extremely interesting, not trying to manage the current thing, but okay, let's move on.
Yeah.
And I think it's really connected. That was incredible, very connected just before to our topic today. Yeah. Could we, potentially also to have a different question and actually our first question. We are working on different continents. We are working with different kind of organizations. We know that. And that was the question to you, Paula. It's, what are you experiencing from our clients? And,
Yep.
and what phase are they mainly in from your point of view, your perspective?
Thank you, Fred. Sorry about the connection issues, everyone. I think what we're experiencing here is people are starting to come out of the survival phase. There's a lot of people still in survival phase, but it was very frantic few weeks. How do I manage my cash flow? Do I have to fire people? Am I going to be able to put people on the government plan? Do I work on this collective suffering? Because we're all in this together. So how do we together find a solution? So I think we've passed a little bit of that. One of the discussions that's happening a lot here, and it's actually a joke, right? Which is who's managing your transformation to virtual? Is it your CEO? Is it your CIO? Or is it COVID, right? And it's COVID, and there's no turning back. I work for a client whom we helped deliver some virtual trainings, and they're like, no, this is just for the COVID phase. And then the actual attendees have said, no, 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 this is not just for the COVID phase. This is over. We're never going to go back to doing this 100% live. So this is very interesting, right? Because also for us as TPC, we've been talking, we worked from home for a very long time. So we're used to connection down and kids coming in and the dog. And then all my colleagues have seen my children naked over the past few years, coming in at whatever time we're having meetings. And this is becoming more common. And I think there's something also around being now an opportunity to transform. And I've heard from clients, a big investment firm saying, well, we had to move 3,000 people online in 2 days. We never thought we were going to do that. And suddenly they're here. And I have a lawyer firm, a law firm who's our client. And they said, I want to give back half of my office space. I have an e-commerce client who said, we're going back in a couple of weeks. I don't want to go back to that office. So that has changed for our big customers. And then when you think about the local business and the characteristics of a country like Brazil, you have a lot of small businesses doing delivery business. And their businesses have migrated to WhatsApp. Some of them have already had that, but then you just WhatsApp the store and they send you something at home. And there's a big movement for local commerce as well, because there's an idea that the big stores will survive. It's the one next to our house who will not. So how can we help these? And the other interesting thing about Brazil, and most of Latin America, there isn't a big culture of solidarity and donation. And when we think about COVID, we also always think about the bad aspects of COVID, right? But the good aspect of COVID, at least here, is that there's been a lot of solidarity. So there's been a lot of giving of food, of money, of let's convert our factories to make masks and respirators, et cetera. Let's build hospitals. So now we're facing another issue, apparently, according to the newspapers, which is we have a lot of hospital capacity, but we need more hospital staff. So we'll see how it plays out. But I think everyone's trying to move to this stabilization phase, still many in survival, but it's been an interesting period when you're actually able to, the metaphor I like to use is when you're actually able to get your head out of the water, right? Because everyone was just swimming, trying to get to the beach. Now that everyone's on the beach, what is really the new normal? So because really, this is what our life looks out now for the foreseeable future. So when we keep talking about going back, and Frauke and I spoke when we were preparing for this, about we're going back to a 2-meter society. Right, okay, so what does that mean? It's not gonna go back to what it was 2 months ago. So this is the new normal. So I think there's a shift in mindset of, instead of thinking, okay, so what is this going to be like when we're back to the new normal? Well, this is the new normal. So how is it now? And can I make the best of it now? And the same goes for us as individuals and for our clients. How do I make this work now? So that's a little bit of what's going on here, Fred. Thank you.
Interesting. And one example I can share with you, because there was a discussion with a client this week, it was exactly about that. And also sometimes the differences between the HQ and the subsidiary. The client we work for, they are in a tough situation in France, and they are extremely impacted. They do work in the retail business, but not the good one, I would say, not the fast moving one. And at the same time, the HQ, they are not impacted at all in some ways. And what they want to do today, the HQ, they want to be back as usual, normal. But that's not the reality of France, and that's not the belief of the French people in this organization and the board team. So that's interesting in terms of tension between both, because they have a complete different perspective about the situation. So interesting that it's not one situation, there are different realities. Even
different
one
realities, absolutely.
Yes, indeed.
Definitely,
completely.
yeah.
Another question to you ladies is, what we've been experiencing since this lockdown was the fact that we were so much in the doing phase, doing side, active. And it's, let's be frank, it was also our situation within TPC leadership. But leadership is not only doing, it's also being, as we know. And actually, we had that nice discussion this morning, not this morning, but this Monday, all together, the monthly call, the leadership team, and we spent some time for being and not only doing, which is good in terms of being clear about what priorities you need in a way. One question to you is if we take one step back and just to think about a concept that could people use to talk that step back and to reflect on this situation, what would be this good concept from your perspective, from your point of view?
Do you want to take this one, Paula?
Sure.
And I'll add.
We work with a lot of CEOs here in Brazil, and they're all very good at doing, right? And they're all very good at, let's see what the cash flow is and let's figure this out, et cetera, blah, blah, and running and doing it, which is exactly what we were doing. But now I think the conversations we've been having is, okay, for you to be a good leader, you need to be consistent in your behavior, and you need to be, right? Not just do. So what do you need to be like for your people? What do you want to show up for your people? One of the things we've been hearing a lot about is people, you might have been a good leader for the past 10 years, but suddenly what you do now during this crisis is what is really going to be remembered about you. So were you a partner to your people? That doesn't mean that you're not going to fire people or that you're not going to reduce salaries or that you're not going to find some way to manage your cash, but how are you going to do it? It's about the being. It's about checking in with people and see how they're feeling. Instead of having just the meetings of, what do we need to do today? We need to do this, 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 this. Okay, so something we did before we started this. How is everyone feeling? How do we want to show up? What's happening in each of our houses? What's going on for each of you? We feel leaders now need to check in with themselves first. How am I feeling? What do I need to leave behind to be able to show up for my team? And what does my team need right now? So just to give an example, and then I'll send it over to Frauke. I've been working with a client where we're doing learning circles with their managers. And so we get all of their managers in the room. And the first one was really interesting because the managers thought they were going to be there to talk about work. And then I just asked, look, how are you feeling these days? And it was just an hour of training experiences about how they were feeling. And what came out the other end is, wow, the company really cares about me. I had never seen this in this company before. And now we've implemented to the rest of the managers. So this is about the being and about engaging employees and about employees knowing that there's some suffering now, but my leaders are really here for me and the company is really here for me. And this is a company that is doing really well during COVID and had to, and it's a digital company. So they're actually flourishing right now, but they thought for a while there in the first few weeks, they thought they might actually have to close down before it turned around because they're non-essential goods. So it's interesting as well how the behavior of the leaders and the way the market moves and the way that they're actually showing themselves as caring is increasing engaging and being more being and not just doing with the people, leaving some space for that, especially because Zoom or whatever tool you're using, we're all about, let's do it. We have an hour, very efficient. So it's important to leave some space for the being bit. Frauke.
Yeah, I love this concept and we use it a lot, right, with clients, and some find it fussy, but it always reminds me of the quote of Maya Angelou. She said, what I learned is that people will forget what you said, people will forget what you did, but people will never forget how you make them feel. And what also struck me when we did this internally, we responded to the question, so if you compare this period to a war period, which may sound silly, right? But your children, your nephews, whatever it is, they'll all ask you in 5 years from now, how were you in COVID period, right? How were you? What did you stand for? So we answered that question ourselves. So how would our clients look back at us after a couple of, months? We took it a little bit shorter. And what struck me is that the answers were not what we delivered to the clients. It was not about our programs. It was not about our interventions. What people answered about was, what I want them to remember is that I was available, that I was honest, that I was a safe pair of hands, and that I was a catalyst for change. And that were the things that were answered. So, but we also talked about, so if we present this, what would the audience, right? What do they have with it? How would it be if you would ask your people, how would you like to be? If you want to be proud of yourself in a couple of months' time, how do you want to be? So maybe to share how we prepared before this webinar, right? The last 10 minutes, it was not about content. We didn't discuss that. Of course, some technicalities, but it was, how do we want to be? How do we want to come across to people? And that were the things that we asked ourselves. And it's very easy to implement before you go into a meeting or whether you talk to a customer. How do I want to be? Instead of only asking what do I want to do. Yeah.
And there's one more thing, Frauke, that has come across as well, Fred, in all of my conversations with CEOs. I had the opportunity to be with 50 CEOs on last Sunday. And the Sunday bit is important because I think we're all very, very busy. Everyone's overwhelmed. The days have blurred, right, for everyone. So we work now Sunday to Sunday. There's no more holiday and what day can you not meet. Everyone's always available. And I think the question now is also, are you focusing on the right things? Are you doing what's important? And what are you doing with all of the time that you're saving on driving, on flying? Because none of us are traveling anymore. So there's a lot of time left over. So what are we focusing on? Yes, lots of us are also having more time for family, etc. So when we talk about the doing and the being, there's a question of balance. And I think we all did a lot for the last whatever weeks you're already quarantined. But we find with CEOs and our clients that there's very little time to be. So which is why we're bringing this up, this concept, because after you're through surviving, right? First you survive. And then after you survive and you figure out, so now that you're stabilizing, or many are stabilizing, or even moving into stabilizing, because some are surviving but moving in, how does all of this that Frauke is saying and about people feeling, how is this playing out? Because we're all very outcome driven, but part of the outcome is also, are people going to be there for you in a year? Or are you going to have lost all of them? I have a client that has a lot of their senior leadership moving on because of the not being of the company in COVID time. So how are you making your people feel in this very stressful time?
Chad, I see two questions in the chat box, and would it be okay if I answer?
Yeah, please, because that's perfectly connected to the next one. So please.
I saw a question, if I recall it well, is do you see a CEO shifting more from financial to purpose? Yes, I would say it, and it's funny how such a disruption makes it more clear to people. So I heard another webinar where the CEO from Friesland Campino, who's a dairy company, he really realized himself. So what is it in essence that we are as a company? We deliver food to people. That's in essence what we are. And it all went back to the core, because that is where you can hook onto. We go back to the core. So yes, definitely we see that. There was another a question around, so how do you manage your own emotions, right? If you have a CEO or an executive who fears that the company is going to die. One answer would be, please listen to our former webcast, which is really about resilience. And there's not a quick fixed answer to that. But I would say also on this one is, you can go back to your own core. What kind of leader would you like to be? Your ideal self. How would your ideal self handle the emotions of the other people, right? It's about, you need to take care of yourself and at the same time be available to others, and it's having that balance. But it also brings me to, this is exactly what is emerging, what is needed, and what is needed in the new way of working is the adaptability and the agility. So not necessarily the agile mindset and all the technicalities. That is a handy way of doing, but you can use all the tools and not have an agile mindset, or not be agile, have your agility. That's exactly what is emerging now. How do you handle your agility?
Yeah, that's connected to the question of Emilia.
Just one more question.
Yeah.
One more point, Fred, because I think it links to what Frauke is saying about being, and there was something coming up in the chat that I quickly saw about purpose. And I think somehow you have to put your money where your mouth is as well during this time. So one of the things we're seeing here in Brazil, at least, is a big movement of do not fire people, make sure you commit to your people because this is going to be over. But then on the other end, they're postponing pays to all of their suppliers. So you're saving your own company, but then you're basically not saving all of the chain and all of the supply chain behind you, which are possibly smaller companies. So when you talk about the being and your purpose and adaptability and flexibility, and you link it to the being, because that's the doing, right? I'm going to not cut my people, but I'm going to cut everybody else in my supply line. So how is that consistent? How are you actually being purposeful and having something that has a bigger mindset for society if there is implications for all of your supply chain? So there's a balance there as well, and a consistency that we talk about. TPC, when we did this discussion this week about what we want to be known for, and how we talk about quality leadership. So is this quality leadership? Me saying, Fred and Frauke, you still have your jobs, but you don't pay any of your suppliers. Is this really quality? So what does quality look like for you and for your business?
Mm.
And we are that's connected to what Benoit shared about the VUCA world. That's our belief within TPC leadership more and more. And we know that we are in this VUCA world more and more. No, it's not a belief, it's just that's what we notice. And this importance of purpose, a clear purpose, and more than ever, then there is a need for this purpose, and people could feel okay in a way because there is a clear purpose and they can connect to this purpose. And it was less true, in a way, a few years ago, but today, more than ever, it's completely true and I would say relevant. And we need that, and companies need that. Back also to the question of, if I may, and it's fantastic discussion, and we have a few minutes more. So I don't want to be directive, as I can be sometimes, but we need to speed up, ladies. Please. One question from Emilie, and I think that's connected to what we had in mind. The last question we had in mind is, what do they, so it's Emilie questions, what do they already imagine to change in their business after this period? We are talking about the clients and the people we work with. And that would be in a way connected to what we have in mind about the new ways of working and also agility. And if there is something new was going to emerge, that is going to emerge. What kind of new agility do we need after COVID? What's your perspective on this? What do you think?
Shall I go?
Please, Frauke.
Yeah. So there's one thing that we definitely see, and there's more leverage of the ecosystem. And that's a big word, but it is working together with other companies, but also breaking silos. Before COVID, we were often asked for, can you please help us breaking the silos? Marketing, not talking to sales, and all this, which we love doing, by the way. But what we now see, the army is helping in the hospitals, right? The army is a trusted advisor of the hospital in ICs. Their daycare, they're helping into the schools. So there's a lot of leveraging the ecosystems. And there was a colleague of mine, he mentioned Tom from Belgium, he mentioned there's also a lot of cross-fertilization possible between NGOs and commercial world. And it's now often very separate. And he put it very nicely. He said there's this shamelessly asking of NGOs that we can use in the commercial world, especially in those crisis times, but also the networking and having this broader scope, who can help. And then that would be one thing, that definitely leveraging the ecosystem. And that is something you can learn. There was another question. So how can we develop this? Adaptability is a developmental skill. That's what we do. That's what we love doing. And it comes first with a mindset shift. And it is what you believe in. And Paula, you mentioned it so nicely before. People thought they were not adaptable. Now look at the whole world. Everyone is working virtual. We all said it wasn't possible. We are more adaptable than we think we are. There are things that definitely you can develop your adaptability, and maybe even very small. Maybe in the future we can drive and bike and walk to our office again. Why don't you take a new route and go with a childish mind and look at the world. Or decide for yourself, I'll be this rebellious person today, not for the sake of being rebellious, but being committed to a discussion and not attached to the outcome, but being committed, bringing different perspectives. So it is really a developmental skill, definitely.
And then to add to that, and
Thanks.
I think Frauke had said most of it, there's something that we discussed for us as well. We are having a very difficult internal decision on some of our discussion on some of our governance. And one of the things, very simple, it seems so simple, right? Something we're seeing right now as well is people returning to the simple stuff. But one of the things we're going to try out is to do a role play. So what if we switch? So what if in this discussion, I represent a different country and another country represents me, and we represent each other points of view. So it seems so simple. And we do this a lot with our clients when we're trying to do what Frauke said of interdepartmental collaboration. So maybe it's also a time, I think it's representative of a time to think differently and think out of the box. And no one people said it couldn't be done. My children's school moved online in 4 days. It's amazing. And yes, it wasn't perfect. And also the capacity that the school had to adapt over the last 6 weeks, and how it changes week to week, and it's getting better and better. And I think that this is what companies are going to need, this agile mindset. So when we talk about agility here in our webinar, it's all about things aren't as set as they were before. Even for big established clients that we have, I see a lot of them moving into, so how am I going to adapt into this digital space? And COVID did a lot of it for them. But I think the mindset needs to stay. So how do I, from now on, do everything with agility? And how do I leverage my ecosystem? Fred, you had a wonderful example about what Google and Apple are doing together, which I think is worth.
Yeah. And just to conclude on this, it's amazing. Huh? You heard about that, this app developed by both companies at the same time, a JV. Could we imagine a JV between Apple and Google before? Let's be frank, no way. And today they did it. And it's something completely new in a way. If you're okay, ladies, let's move on and share again this question we shared in the beginning of the discussion.
Very good. You stop us. We could continue.
Yeah. I know that. I know you for a while. So, and I like that. No, but be back to this question. And what we would like for you, if you want, is to share your reflection on the chat box. And that first question, which is a quite provocative question. Are you managing the response or creating transformation? What do you think? What do you feel? Happy to get your, I would say, reflection. By the way, I can't read anything in the chat box. So ladies, if you can share, if people want to share their thoughts.
And Louise, I think you can change it to all panelists and attendees.
No, but it's just because I share the document. So
oh, okay, we'll see.
Technical aspects. So are you managing this response or creating transformation? Sorry.
And transformation and everything at the end, when we were discussing the seminar, something we talked about a lot is how will people talk about you in 5 years? Your children especially, to make it very concrete. So what will they say about you? What did you do? How did you impact your company? How did you impact the world? So
and that's the third question, huh? How you will be remembered.
Yeah, there's already saying someone, you're both. Yeah, and that's what we see. Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
And that last one now, how are you thinking beyond COVID? Are you thinking about beyond COVID? And if yes, how?
We'd love to see your answers in chat so that we can also share it with everyone.
So we see managing response, taking the great ways of working from now and thinking how this could be used going forward. It's a yes, exclamation mark, by finding new ideas of dealing with clients. Nice. Yep.
Creating new intimacy with your clients.
Definitely not do anymore. Yeah, the not to do list, very important one. Yeah.
Very long list for some people.
Yeah.
Definitely, I'm thinking beyond COVID-19, otherwise there will be no future. Interesting perspective as well. Yeah.
Oh, getting prepared to the next unprepared.
Yeah.
We say a
Interesting.
lot at TPC, right? To be comfortable with the uncomfortable. It has a lot to do with this getting prepared to the unprepared. Imagine waking up in 2030. Express your dream.
Yeah.
The way a leader is managing the immediate crisis is also creating the upcoming transformation. Yes, top-down or collaborative, problem-focused, or including new opportunities.
Yeah.
Focusing on stakeholder needs. Culture of collaboration and learning.
Nice.
Crisis made me realize that I can cope quite well. We talked about that too, which there are people who are suffering in the crisis, but there are people thriving who really love this high energy, need to change, fast pace, etc.
Yeah.
Accepting to be out of
personality,
our
Final words, ladies. If you want to share a final word, final thought.
Would you like to go first, Paula?
Yeah,
whatever you like. I'm happy to go.
I think these are interesting times. There's a Chinese curse, interesting, that says, may you live in interesting times, right? And for me, these are definitely interesting times that will impact all of us, our families, the way we lead our lives, even after we have a vaccine. I don't think we'll ever be the same. There's something around being prepared for this. I remember my grandmother telling stories of having canned food in the house because of the war. So what's going to be our canned food and our toilet paper, right? Which is already happening now. But what's going to be our canned food is my question. What is going to be our thing that we need to be always prepared? And maybe what's coming up here, right? Which is be prepared for the unprepared or for the unexpected. So that's what's coming up for me, being agile in this scenario.
Yeah.
And Frauke.
Very nice. Yeah, for me, what resonates is really, can you lead people through the unknown? And that seems to be now moving forward in the future. I think that is the kind of standard. The standard is the unknown. How do you lead yourself through it? And how do you lead others through the unknown? So take care of yourself and be available for others and your future clients. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Paula and Frauke, for all your thoughts and insights. Thank you all for being there with us, sharing your inputs and also insights and reflections. But great to spend that time with you. Feel free to follow us on LinkedIn. We have new coming webinars in the future. We are working on it, actually. So in 2-3 weeks, you should know more from us about this. And it was a real pleasure. Have an inspiring day and see you soon. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Ciao, everybody.
It's on LinkedIn if you want to talk more.
À bientôt.
Yeah. Bye.